friends, welcome to my channel 5 Minutes History. Today I bring you the amazing story of Japan's self-isolation or Sakoku. Literally meaning chained country in Japanese, Sakoku was the isolationist foreign policy of the Japanese Tokugawa shogunate, under which for a period of 220 years, Japan isolated itself from the rest of the world. The Tokugawa shogunate was the last feudal military government in Japan. They ruled from 1603 to 1868, known as the Edo period, during which Japan experienced political stability, internal peace, and economic growth. During the 17th century, the European countries were competing each other for territorial expansion and new colonies. Japan at that time had unrestricted trade with the outside world. Taking advantage of this open policy, foreign powers had established deep trade relations with Japan. A large number of foreign traders were resident in Japan, and with them came foreign culture and religion. Japan had already suffered through a long period of civil war and unrest known as Sengoku, which had lasted from 1467 to 1615. The Tokugawa shogunate believed this was due to the introduction of Christianity by the Spanish and Portuguese as well as other foreign influences, and they started believing that Europe might try to colonize Japan. As such, the military government in Japan decided to take drastic measures to repel the European powers. Thus, they introduced the policy of Sakoku, meaning chained or locked country, by which they literally closed Japan for outside world. Trade between Japan and other countries was severely limited, and nearly all foreign nationals were banned from entering Japan, while common Japanese people were kept from leaving the country. The policy was strictly enforced to the extent of imposing death penalty to those who had contact with the outside world. In 1634, even an artificial island called Dejima or Exit Island was created off the coast of Nagasaki as the only point of foreign contact. During Sakoku, Japanese ships were forbidden to leave for foreign countries, and no Japanese were permitted to travel abroad. If any Japanese ship attempted a foreign trip, the ship was seized and the travelers were executed. In addition, all incoming ships were thoroughly searched for Christian missionaries. If found, they were tortured into renouncing their religion or were executed. One of the only European people allowed to trade with the Japanese were the Dutch, as instead of bringing religion and firearms into Japan, the Dutch only dealt in goods. The Dutch also cemented their relationship with the Japanese government when during the Shimabara rebellion of 1637, they had sent a gunboat to destroy the rebel stronghold. The Shimabara rebellion was an uprising of Japanese peasants who were dissatisfied with the heavy taxation and the abuses of the local officials. As the majority of the peasants in the area had been converted to Catholicism by Spanish and Portuguese missionaries, the rebellion soon took on religious overtones. The rebels were supported by the masterless samurai warriors called the Ronin, and the Japanese government could only suppress them with the help of the Dutch firepower. This incident reinforced the government's belief that Christian ideas were the root cause of the unrest in the country, and they crushed the Japanese Christian movement in the 17th century. Japan's self-isolation continued for more than 200 years till the middle of the 19th century. At that time, European powers were in a mission mode to colonize the Asian countries. Britain had already established the colony of Hong Kong in China, and Europeans were desperate to gain grounds in Japan as well. In 1853, US Navy Commodore Matthew Perry sailed to Japan, determined to force the country into diplomatic and trade relations with the West. Perry believed that a display of superior naval power combined with a resolute attitude would end the Japan's policy of isolation. In February 1854, Perry sailed into Edo Bay with 9 ships and threatened Japanese forces that he would not be leaving until a treaty was signed. This led to a standoff between Japanese officers with swords and Americans with guns. Realizing their military weakness, Tokugawa shogunate eventually surrendered. On 31st March 1854, the Treaty of Kanagawa was signed. by which Japanese ports were opened to American vessels. A US consul was established in Shimoda, and assurance was given for better treatment of shipwrecked seamen. The Treaty of Kanagawa was followed by a series of other treaties that effectively ended Japan's 220 years old policy of Sakoku or national isolation. It also led to the collapse of the Tokugawa shogunate and paved the way for the modernization of Japan. The Sakoku period adversely affected Japan's technological advancement, but culturally, this period proved beneficial in saving Japan's unique features. Many of the cultural elements associated with Japan today originate from the period of Sakoku. Haiku poetry, wood block print, the tea ceremony, kabuki drama, bonsai tree cultivation, and traditional Japanese landscape gardening are all dated to this period. Japan did not take much time in matching the West in technology, but without isolation, it would have surely lost its unique and fascinating culture and traditions.